But you don't have to name all the other ones.
Right. Okay.
This is
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations, so that those that make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Thank you, Mike.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barrett?
Here.
Mr. Belisha?
Here.
Mr. Marconi?
Here.
Mrs. Gilbert McBride?
present.
Mr. Brooks?
Here.
Also in attendance is Mayor George Brown, Controller Darren Snyder, Director of Operations Dave Friday, City Attorney Tim Henry, Assistant City Clerk Tracy Smith, and Administrative Assistant Lisa Semple. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's regular session of City Council. Please turn off all cell phones. Following are examples of some important council rules. They are not intended to be a complete list. Please adhere as closely as possible to the 5-minute speaker presentation time limit. All remarks should be addressed to the council and not to any individual members. No persons are allowed to address the council from beyond the rail, except the speaker at the dais who has the floor. The chairperson shall preserve order and decorum and prevent attacks on personalities. The chairperson shall determine all points of order. No person except city officers or their representatives shall be permitted within the rail during any meeting without the express permission of the council. And finally, in order to be heard by all in attendance, as well as to be picked up by the microphones, when members of the administration are speaking, please stand up and speak into the microphone.
Okay, comments on pending legislation. So that was the items we just discussed. Does anyone have any comments on pending legislation? Mr. Troy?
I'd just like to state my support for the potential appointment of Harry Kropp to the Shade Tree Commission. I've only known Mr. Kropp for a few months, but is he in attendance here? No. I don't assume this will be a problem, but he, as some of you know, Mr. Brooks was aware of this, he generously tried to donate 100 trees to the city. He bought them at his own expense and wanted to donate all of them to the city, but unfortunately, because of problems, spaces to put them in, I guess, and time consumption, so forth. I guess that wasn't, we weren't, as it turned out, I mean, Dave Lewis did take about 30 or 40, I think, and put them in a couple of the parks, which I think was a good thing. I helped Mr. Kropp arrange for the distribution of others to a couple of other municipalities. And, I thought that was very generous on his part and a good thing for the city, even though the city, as it turns out, didn't take that middle, but it was enough. Needless to say, I think that manifests along this, that manifestation of his character, that generosity is enough to warrant his appointment. But I think in general, from talking to him, getting to know him better over the last few months, I think that his long-term interest is consistent with the overall improvement of the city, whether it's environmental or financial or whatever. He has explained to me several times, he has talked to me about some of the various city problems and how he thinks they may be rectified. And as far as the trees situation goes, he knows that what we're up against, because obviously our tree commission could use a lot more leverage, council members. Maybe not as much as they have over in Kingston and Fortyfoot, but a little more. The task ahead of us, I think, is enormous, especially with the climate change syndrome really squeezing us, making things more difficult for survival of several species, including the human race. But I just want to also comment, if I may, some time remaining, just talking to the gentleman represents Joyce, and I'm glad that these specifics came forward. It was 600,000, you said was the premium, right? About 600,000. I thought that Joyce was only with the city for a few years, since the previous, Mr. Brown's predecessor, Tony George, brought them on, but I was mistaken. But I was just wondering, you know, in the betterment of rational spending, in consideration of being more frugal, did the city, I don't know if Mayor Brown can answer this or whoever, I'm not knocking, look, I'm sure your company is very, has a lot of integrity and all that. I was just wondering about if it's possible to break these areas down to how much the premium is for each area. There's a lot of areas here. And I think it behooves council to look a little more closely at this. I know, all right, it's been going back for us for 25 years, but still, I think should be under consideration whether this thing should be put out for bid again. Should there be another request for proposal? Is that possible? And I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. I'm just saying, in the interest of saving money and being frugal, since the fiscal situation of the city is still very tenuous, that it should be considered at least somewhat. But other than that, I don't really have anything except for the Mayor Brown, the 6 police cars, the 5 police interceptors. I don't assume any money comes out of the general budget for that, right? Is this all CoStar's program then?
No, yeah, it's being paid for by the American Recovery Plan, part of the $37.1 billion we received. So it's not coming out of the budget anyway.
I see. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on pending legislation? Okay, thank you. We'll move into votes.
Council's agreed to do a consent agenda, besides the Joyce Insurance Group that we voted on separately. So what we're voting on is the appointment of Jessica McClay to the Planning Commission, the winter service agreement exhibit, the purchase of the police vehicles, and then the reappointments and appointments to boards and authorities that the mayor has on the agenda. The only one that will be voted on separately is going to be the Joyce Insurance. So we need a motion and a second on the consent agenda, which will also include the minutes.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Barrett,
Second.
and a second by Mr. Marconi. And we vote, Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
And Mr. Brooks.
Yes, but I want to recognize and thank Samantha Chigaretti for being here, Jean Brody for being here, Jessica McClay for being here for the vote. I know I always request that people should come and introduce themselves to the council and the public. And I do know, Mr. Mayor, you strongly encourage them all to come, so I appreciate that. I just want to reiterate that it's nice that people who we reappoint or appoint to the commission can make themselves available to our questions from the public, us, or the press. But so thank you, Samantha, Jean, and Jessica.
And then the final item is the Park City Commissioners to hereby authorized to take any and all action related to accepting the insurance package submitted by the Joyce Insurance Group. We need a motion and a second.
Motion.
By Mr. Belishko,
Second.
second by Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Mr. Belishko,
Yes.
Mr. Marconi,
Yes.
Mrs. McBride,
Abstain.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Council presentations again. Mr. Barrett, anything else to add?
Just one additional thing, and I know Mr. Fry is working with me on this, and we have some groups that use our parks for sports activities. In this particular case, Parsons Park is used by an organization known as the Wilkes-Barre Bears, and there for many years, a football team, and it's great to go by there on a Sunday and see all the children out there organize sports and something like it. It's wonderful. My only concern is that on Monday morning, the park should look like a park. And not have stuff strewn all over it, sports equipment, ropes, barriers, trash, whatever might be left over. First and foremost, the city park belongs to all the residents of the city. And I get complaints on Monday morning when people drive by and say it's going to be like it's all fall now, it's going to be left like this. And it also makes it difficult for our parks departments, our DPW people to get in there and cut the grass. If you drove by there today to look at it, there's all kind of stuff out there. There's equipment that I don't even know what they even use for, but it's just left laying there. At one time there was dumpsters, they bring their own dumpsters, they pick up a little bit, they send the kids out after a game and give them a bag and let them police up the area. Well, I don't see that happening. Some of the residents are pretty much doing that themselves, and they're a little bit upset that this goes on. So again, first and foremost, it's wonderful that it's a park and it should be used by the public, and it's great to see the kids there doing it. Coming from all over, and I'll tell you, it's a pretty intense game to go down and look at it myself for a while. And that's fantastic. We have to remember that it is a city park, and they have a responsibility, and Mr. Crowley was working with them to try and correct some of those issues. But you go by there today and look at it, it looks like it looks the same as it did Sunday evening. And I don't know how anybody's going to get in there and cut the grass or do anything they need to do, or use it for anything else. So just conveying that, I'm hoping that we can make some progress with that and get them to kind of step up a little bit and keep that in mind that it does not belong to any one organization, it belongs to all of us. Thank you.
Mr. Belisco?
Nothing more.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes, I do. Couple things, just Mr. Ferry, I do see him out here too. I think with his experience, I really think, him going on the planning commission would be an asset as well. I do have a couple of questions for the administration. Mayor, I know I asked this before. I was just wondering if we found out or who the auditor for our American Rescue Plan is. Did we get that yet? Did we get the auditor yet?
The accountant?
Yes.
Yeah, we received applications, we're reviewing the applications, have not selected one yet.
Okay. Also, school is back. I'm specifically talking about college here. My district, all on North Main Street, not all, but a lot of North Main Street, there's college people who rent out there. And this is just a suggestion. I don't know if we can do it or not, but I was wondering when they come back to school, if we can get the landlords some information on when the garbage is picked up, maybe when cardboard and plastic is picked up. We're going to have to explain to them about different containers now because that has changed. We also got to let them know that it's only 1 day out ahead. We can't go putting this stuff out 2, 3, 4 days out ahead. This stuff ends up all over the ground, and we know what all happens there. And I was just wondering if we can get some kind of information to the landlords, and hopefully they can relay this to the college students. Are we able to do something like that? Can we get a memo put up or a memo made and sent out maybe to them?
We have done that in the past. The university, Wilkes University, and I believe King's administrations have also schooled their students who live on campus on city property. The landlords know what the deal is. However, we're talking about college kids who, they're studying, they're not thinking about and doing other things, having fun. They're not thinking about putting out, recycling when it's supposed to be put out. But we try, honestly, we really do.
I'm not blaming the city by all means. I'm just saying, try and get some kind of information to the landlords so the landlords can pass it along to the school students, and hopefully they'll take a look at it and just kind of adhere to it. That's all.
Well, if it'll make a difference, I'll be happy to write another ad in the paper, but I don't know how do we have information how to identify these landlords?
I think
some
if
are
you
out
look
of
at
town.
universities, they blast emails to the students.
Yeah.
So talk to the universities and then they can put it out to a separate email just about that. I mean, a good suggestion.
That's fine, that's just as long as we can somehow or other get that information to them that, these are the days, so on and so forth. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. McBride.
Yeah, just a couple more things. Mayflower Park, the grass is always cut there, but there's a ton of weeds and growth, like where the baseball field is around the cages. If we could get that taken care of. There's also some old wooden benches there that haven't been used in.
Yeah, we're gonna get rid of those.
Okay. Other than that, it looks good. It's just that little maintenance stuff. The white goods pickup. Does the city make money on this? And if not, how much does it cost us to do?
Well, I can go by, historically, the last time we had this was under the previous administration, and it wasn't a huge moneymaker, but it didn't cost us any money. This time, we are able to get a grant from the county to offsetting the cost. I don't remember exactly what that number is, but you know, we can get that to you. And the way we have it planned out, I believe we'll do well on this white goods pickup.
Thank you. And the last thing, I noticed that the city was advertising for, I think it's an HR assistant position. Number one, was this a budgeted position? And number two, I know that a few years ago there was a position in the HR department that seems to be the same as this one, but I know the pay was much less. I think the last position was like around 30-some thousand, and this one's about 50,000. So I was just wondering if there's a difference between the two positions.
There is, that this position is called a coordinator, which is more, they have more, how should I say that, it's not a clerical type position or a, what you call an HR generalist position. This is much more above that. It's right below a level you might call a director. So this position, looking at the marketplace right now for human resource positions, they're very well paid. And for what we want for this person to do, we felt that was the appropriate salary based on the market salaries. And this position, a big part is being paid for by a grant that we've secured. So this is not, it's not in this year's budget. It will be in next year's budget, but a big part of it, most of it's being paid for by a grant that we are securing.
Do you have an end date for the grant? Or is it just 1 year?
No, I don't have that information. I know that we're actually applying for the grant now, but it has to be applied for by, I believe, next week.
Okay.
We're going to get the money. It's just that in the grant, we determine where those monies are going to go. And this is part of that being covered by the grant. You get an outline when you do grants, and this is outlined in the grant. This type of work that this person can do, he or she.
Okay. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Public discussion. Jessica McLean? No. You're good. Greg Griffin?
Greg Griffin, Squirtersville, and future owner of 445 South River Street. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and citizens. I just want to give a quick update on the Blight Committee. Our cleanups are going well, our Saturday cleanups, and sometimes during the week. And several residents are joining the block captains program. There are still many backyards with piles of trash and junk cars. We have to devise a plan where these residents can clean up these backyards. Senior citizens, disabled, or needy people that just, they don't have the resources. Somehow they inherited these backyards. It could be apartments, and you know, it's, with the Blight Committee, we'd like to get away from citing people, but first warning them, of course, and then also coming out with a solution on how do we do a long-term solution to cleaning up these backyards where you have people with well-maintained homes, and they have to look at it across the fence, and it's just horrible. So we have to find a way to be able to help these residents who have these troubled backyards. And of course, The junk cars, I think if there could be some sort of solution in that respect where we could approach these people and have the junk car, the towing people, approach them and help them facilitate the titles or whatever, because a lot of times the record companies won't take the vehicles because there's not a clear title. Meanwhile, the vehicle sits there, it's filled with cats and trash, so that's a problem that has to be worked on. But definitely the block captains program, I think was going to be able to work to reach out to these citizens with these troubled backyards and help them with a handout. Once the block captains program gets up and running, I believe the neighborhoods will be in much better shape. Philadelphia, Lansdale, and Albany, New York have up and running block captains programs, and they're working out very well. But Wilkes-Barre's block captains program could be a little piece of Lansdale's, or a little piece of Philly's, or Albany's. It doesn't have to be a template for what these other cities have done. And so that's about it for the Blight Committee. But real quick, I have a copy for all council members and the mayor. More money is available, $3 billion in grants for economic development in communities. And you probably already know it, council members, but just some of our Blight team members want to make sure. There's $3 billion more from Uncle Sam. But it's very competitive grants that not all communities are going to get, but it's good information in there. Another one is how Denver tackled homelessness while saving money. We have a homeless problem here, and it's leading to excess police calls, calls for service, emergency, fire, Narcan, the works. Anyway, the housing piece of the Denver program was paid for with federal and state housing vouchers. The other services were paid for by Medicaid and a contract called a social impact bond. Under the contract, private investors lent the city $8.6 million. If the participants spent more time in housing and less time in jail, investors would get additional money. Denver ended up saving so much money on emergency services that it repaid investors $9.6 million. So this is another outside the box idea. Denver has grasped onto it. Wilkes-Barre could look at it and definitely try to get this federal money. But the thing is, if you keep these people off the street and you get them to constructive treatment and maybe job training programs, there's less calls for service. Denver saved $9.6 million. So they've got it going. And so this is just another idea. So this is another one for the mayor and council members. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing, and I also appreciate what you said about helping people with their backyards when they, or their homes, whatever you're helping them with, when they just become so overwhelmed with everything that is in there, whether it be junk cars, trash, or whatever you have. And also, when you spoke to the homeless population in the city, there's something called paralysis of enormity. And that is when the problem seems so big that you don't know where to start. So I appreciate that you're trying to look for solutions on where to start with these issues.
Absolutely.
And it's very much appreciated, all that you do for that. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks so much for all the support from the mayor and the council members and our great police department.
Thank you, Mr. Goode. Brian Ferry?
Brian Ferry, South Washington Street. New podium, I like it. I'm here to talk to you guys tonight about what the plans are for Wilkes-Barre moving forward regarding the infrastructure bill that has recently passed through Senate, it looks like in some way, shape, or form, there's going to be a pretty significant infrastructure bill moving forward. And I think this is a golden opportunity. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the city. We need to capitalize on this. Our taxpayers cannot continue to pay into these programs and not reap the rewards. So I think it's imperative that we start looking immediately at what that's going to entail. As you guys all know, I'm pretty big in, I've got a degree in urban planning, landscape architecture, and I think that's where one of the places that we need to be looking. And I have some pamphlets here, if you'd like to grab these, for council and the mayor and anyone else in the audience here. There's a couple here. I think there's there. But we need to be, one idea that I think would be best beneficial for the city is looking at transit-oriented development. I believe I have emailed you all on this in the past, and I think that this is something really worth pursuing. So transit-oriented development looks at, we would have to look at rezoning parts of the city, but let's see. So the Luzerne County Redevelopment Authority owns the rights to the railroad that runs right through Center City here, which is a huge opportunity, and the Redevelopment Authority owns, I believe, all of it from here to Scranton. So we should be looking at my proposal would be to look at a bus rapid transit line connecting here, stopping in downtown Pittston, and ending up in Scranton. This would work on multiple levels because we should be working with PennDOT as well, because PennDOT is looking to widen 81 from here to Scranton at an exorbitant cost, like billions, I believe 1.5 billion, 2 billion, so something ridiculous. And if we could start to improve transit, we wouldn't need to expand 81. Because highway expansion is largely fruitless anyways, because you end up with what's called induced demand. So when you add additional lanes of travel to a highway, you end up with more demand on that because it frees it up so people use it more often. And then you end up with the same amount of traffic. So you're just chasing your tail in adding lanes. This is an actual plan for solving some of that transit problem, some of the traffic congestion problems that we're experiencing. And we could use this as a template for instilling confidence in developers and creating more demand for downtown housing, which we're already seeing a lot of demand for downtown housing. This is just another way of increasing that demand, which is what we want. And if you look at it, you'll see, I list a couple elements that are important for transit-oriented development. And one element of that is green space. We've got a huge opportunity for green space at the corner of Scott Street, North Street, in that area, where there's just a Turkey Hill, which is redundant. I think we could all agree, because there's another Turkey Hill a block away. And then it's just parking. It is a massive parking lot. We don't need that much parking, because what parking does is it also enables people to live further away. We want people in the city. We want students in the city. That's where our money is going to come from. That's how we're going to start rebuilding our tax base, by getting people in the city. I think we can all agree that we need more people in the city. And by creating this green space, then we're providing another great area for developers to want to develop. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up there. I would also like to take 2 seconds to say thank you to Mr. Bilski. I had a problem. There were 3 used syringes left in a planter in front of my house, and I know, an absolute mess. And I called down to, I was recommended to call down to the fire station, and Mr. Bilski was there within less than 15 minutes to come and pick them up and properly dispose of them. So I would like to thank him and the rest of the fire department for really stepping up and helping me out, as well as other citizens who have experienced that same problem.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. I'll make other comments about service parking in Wilkes-Barre. If you take a look, I have a lot of photographs of Wilkes-Barre, obviously what I do. If you take aerial views of Wilkes-Barre in 1959 and take an aerial view today, and we've lost a third, maybe even more, 40% of our land to parking.
Right.
It drives me nuts when people say, I can't find a parking spot in Wilkes-Barre, when they're all over the place.
Right.
They're just complaining that they can't park in front of what they want to go to, they need to walk.
Right.
Walking is good for us. But yes, I mean, so there is a comprehensive plan for downtown. I'm sure you're talking to Larry Newman. I would
Right.
also suggest coming to our board meeting, the Diamond City Partnership, and adding some of this into it. It's broken down into 6 different buckets of things that we look at
Right.
for planning Wilkes-Barre. So come to those meetings as
Absolutely.
well. Okay. Thank you. Any
Yeah.
questions for Mr. Barry? Thanks.
To further build on that, we don't get surface parking doesn't add to our property tax base.
Not at all.
Buildings add to it, so
Right.
thank you.
Mark Darteau. The man in the bow tie. Proud American. Yeah, I can do one of those. I don't wear bow ties in council. These days I will.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, member of council, and my fellow citizen. I thank you for the privilege to speak freely for you in this great nation of ours, in the city of Wilkes-Barre. I'm Martin Darteau. Many may not have known me, or many knows me out here. I'm the young man who ran for county council for Luzerne County, and I'm here to give a great thank you to Mr. Mayor for the opportunity when I filled in on my application, because I'm a common man, and I'm fighting for the common people. I'm looking forward to working alongside with our elected officials on one of these boards. And here's the letter that was returned, and I really appreciate it. I'm gonna give a little background about myself. Many may not know me. I'm from Liberia, the oldest republic in West Africa, the closest to the United States than any other African nation. I migrated here at a young age, at the age of 11, through the immigration process, crossing due to 14 years of civil war, crossing walk in 2 weeks from Monrovia across to Ivory Coast. And then we took a bus, went to Ghana, where the immigration process took place, because it couldn't take place in Liberia due to the chaotic and the war. I like to bring those up to let people know of who I am. Many may have different views, different thoughts or ideas of me, or what I was standing for. But many don't know where I have come from in my struggle to be a great citizen of our nation. My background, as you know, I'm part of the Black community team. We are here daily for the weekends, doing things that many are afraid to do, reaching out to the people, cleaning up our environment, to make sure we keep our city clean, to bring more investors, to bring more people into our community. But we do live in a beautiful city, in a beautiful county, and we're looking forward to push forward. And I thank you for the letter. And I humbly ask that this go through, and I can be part, working alongside with our council member, and moving forward. There's a lot of great things going on in my life as of now. I'm in the process of serving our nation, because my heart has always been the protection of our people, 3+1. The protection of senior citizens, women, children, and those who cannot protect themselves. So apart from that, yesterday I received a letter from the PSP after I filled in my application that I was eligible for the first phase. And I'm looking forward to doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your volunteer efforts. Mr. Griffith, we appreciate all the volunteer that you do. Any comments or questions for Mr. Dartel? Okay. Mr. Troy? Okay. Is there any other comments or questions due to the order from everyone? Okay, our next meeting will be, work session is Tuesday, September 7th, and our voting session will be on Thursday, September 9th. Look forward to seeing you all. Okay.